What will you do without freedom? Will you fight for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Alright friends, so it seems as though people are getting quite frustrated, and honestly, I feel the exact same way. I noticed that over the years, I'm becoming a little bit more black-pilled. Now of course, I generally try to remain as positive as possible, but on certain issues I just can't deny it anymore. I can't delude myself. I'm becoming black-pilled. And specifically, it's on the issue of accountability. How much more evidence do you need? How much more evidence is necessary? Yet even when presenting the receipts, a bombshell of epic proportions, the scandal of a decade, people seem utterly uninterested. So let's continue to talk about the Twitter files. Let me show you guys what some people are talking about, and then let's focus specifically on the word accountability. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so Twitter Files 4 has hit, and for the most part, there's nothing really that brand new or shocking. It's a continuation of everything that happened behind the scenes at Twitter in the decision to ban Donald Trump, but honestly the biggest bombshell in the fourth segment of the Twitter Files is Yoel Roth's push for a permanent suspension of Matt Gaetz' Twitter account over his Antifa claims, where apparently Yoel Roth pushed for this suspension even though it didn't quite fit anywhere, and it was kind of a test case for the rationale for banning Donald Trump. The Twitter Files continue to show us just how politically biased these decisions have been, but the fourth Twitter Files drop has been relatively uneventful, at least in comparison to the previous three drops. I think we can all agree with that, and this has people getting frustrated. Here's a tweet from Tim Pool. "I'm over it," Tim says. "This is getting dragged out too long and dropped at the worst times. It's one thing to slow roll, it's another to do a Saturday night drop. This is usually done when companies want to kill the story." Andrew from Don't Walk Run Productions writes, "I don't have the tolerance for this super slow rollout of Twitter Files number 4 and beyond. It's just boring AF and needlessly drawn out, especially during the evening on a weekend. I suggest catching up after the final tweet from each tranche is posted. Read everything at once." A lot of people are unhappy with the slow roll of the Twitter drops, and while I understand the frustration, I think it's pointed in the wrong direction. I don't think the issue is that it's a slow, drawn-out process. I think people just frankly don't care. And of course, I think the media is corrupt, and that's probably the most important factor. But that's a separate issue, and we'll get to that later. The simple fact of the matter is that people just don't care enough. We have proof that unelected technocrats were colluding with Democrat heavy hitters and the FBI to control information on social media platforms. I mean, that is the scandal of my lifetime. It's legitimate, at this point, irrefutable evidence of a massive conspiracy to interfere in American elections. I sound like a broken record, of course, because I've been saying it over and over again, but it's a big friggin' deal. And the outrage is minimal. Most people either aren't paying attention or aren't making enough noise. This is potentially the sign of the actual end of American democracy. And I mean that literally, not just the buzzword nonsense rhetoric that we hear from leftists in the media. It's something that should make people angry and outraged. Legitimately so, rightfully so. But that frustration, it isn't there. There's no protests. And this is what I say about conservatives all the time. What do you think you're going to accomplish as a voter base if you're unwilling to protest, if you're unwilling to get frustrated and make your voice heard? I mean, that's what Democrats are doing all the time. For the slightest, littlest thing, they protest. Now we have the potential end of American democracy. Shadowy elitist groups working together, conspiring to undermine American elections, to destroy the Republican Party and the will of Republican voters, and all you see are people tweeting about it and complaining. And when Donald Trump vents his frustration on Truth Social, you even see some supposed conservatives attacking Donald Trump for his frustration because he might have misspoke or said something a little bit unclear, or which can be interpreted within a specific way. It is sheer cowardice. You know, how are Republican voters expecting accountability for their opponents when they're unwilling to even hold their own leaders accountable? Sebastian Gorka did a poll on his Twitter yesterday where he asked users this question: Will the GOP do anything meaningful with Elon Musk's Twitter files disclosure? An overwhelming 85% of respondents said no. Well, if you believe that that's the case, once again, where is the outrage? It's just generally accepted that nothing's going to happen and that the GOP is going to continue in their passive ways and letting the Democrats walk all over them. Well, of course, that's going to be the case if there's no significant pressure from the GOP voter base. And I don't know if we're seeing enough of that pressure materialize. The entire system, all of these most powerful institutions, are working together to destroy Republicans. The problem here isn't the Twitter drops or how they're being released, the lack of damning evidence or bombshell details. The problem is American voters being too passive, too distracted, and not paying attention to what's going on. And Republican voters themselves are part of that problem. And then, of course, there's the compounding effect of the fact that the media is totally compromised, totally corrupt, and they're essentially moving forward as if this Twitter files story doesn't even exist. I mean, this story is something for the history books, and the media just doesn't care. You know, if you think about it, maybe that's why Joe Biden decided to trade Victor Bout for Brittany Griner at this specific moment. Maybe they weren't open to the deal, but once they realized that it would make national headlines, maybe they thought, hey, it's a great distraction. People will be talking about Brittany Griner instead of all the bombshell revelations at Twitter. And so you see the normies are just not paying attention. The media is compromised. The media is corrupt. They're doing the bidding of the elitist globalist class. They're part of the Twitter files conspiracy and scandal. They're probably one of the most major players. And you have a lazy, uninformed populace that is just not interested and doesn't understand the severity of the information that's dropping. That's why there's no accountability. And it's frustrating to go through this cycle over and over again. That's what I was saying in the intro, where I'm starting to get a little bit black-pilled. I mean, after what Hillary Clinton and the DNC did in 2017, all the way through Donald Trump's presidency with the Russia hoax, after we saw the media totally mislead and misinform the American public with a clearly fabricated garbage narrative, story, whatever you want to call it, after they manipulated evidence and even presented false evidence to the courts to get a FISA warrant, after all of that and after all of the revelations, there's still not a single person who has been truly held accountable. And once again, you have a distracted, lazy populace that is just totally uninterested. And that is where my frustration lies. I'm not frustrated by the fourth segment of the Twitter files being dropped on a Saturday night, or that the files are being split up into segments or sections and being released slowly over time. I'm frustrated in the fact that these revelations are shocking, disturbing, horrifying, whatever you want to call it, and that most people either don't know what's happening or just don't care. And that you have the other side that chooses to be complicit in all of this corruption, chooses to look the other way because it benefits them. How can you ever see accountability in this environment? I just don't see it. There needs to be immense political pressure on the GOP to not let this story just fizzle out with time, like they've allowed to happen with all of the other ones. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel if you guys are up for it. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.